Welcome to my review of the GRRande 2 tool belt from Diamondback. I'm supposed to be on holiday. I brought the tool belt with me, so what am I going to do? Hi, Len here. I bought this tool belt 8 months ago and I've been running it ever since. I've wanted to do this review for quite a long time. So this is my old tool belt, the Super Yankee from Taurus. By the way, if you don't want to get this little backstory, just skip ahead in the timeline. I've got chapters down here where you can skip to the actual review part. A lot of Kiwi carpenters are running this, and I think probably almost every apprentice will start out with one of these. And look, build quality wise, they are pretty good, but they're not that big. When I was doing formwork, they'd get filled up with fixings and it'd be quite heavy. With this narrow belt here, it would really start to dig in. So I invested in some suspenders. And unfortunately, with the way this belt is set up, hooks for the suspenders are right around the side there. So that didn't really work because it pulls the pouches around the front. Some carpenters like to have their pouches around the front. It wasn't for me. So I ended up buying some belt loops to go with it around here and one around the back. I did have to alter this to stop these sliding around, but they lasted for a while. The big annoyance for me was I couldn't really get this tape measure loop to work properly. I was using a Milwaukee tape measure at the time. Belt hooks on them are absolutely hopeless. And there's no speed square slot. Oh, let's get this uncomfortable thing off. I started looking around at other options and the name Diamondback came up. Initially I was looking at the Artisan, which was quite a little organised tool belt. I liked the idea of it, but I think it was just a little bit too small. It was more organised than the Taurus, but I don't think it was a lot bigger. The next one that came up was the Denali 2, which was a fair bit bigger, still quite organised, not as big as this in some respects. But my concern was that it was just a little bit too long. So it hangs down 17.5 inches, which I worked out to be about knee level. So then the GRRande 2 came up and I really liked these big pouches. The thing with Diamondback and these really high-end tool belts is they're not carried in your big hardware stores, so you need to either ask around and find someone who has one that you can try, or you can find a source. So in New Zealand they've got Sig Tools in Palmerston North, which is where I bought my tool belt from, and I think they stock all the Diamondback tool belts. Or there's Tradie Republic up in North Shore. They don't have the full tool belts listed on their website, but they have all the pouches so they can make any tool belt that you like. With any Diamondback gear, you don't necessarily need to buy the entire tool belt. You can chop and change as you wish. So, as I said, this is the GRRande 2 set, but these pouches are two completely different pouches. If this is too big for you, try on some of the other ones, or look at changing pouches around. Probably try to get two that are reasonably similar size and think about how you want your tools. For me, being right-handed, I have the majority of my tools on the right-hand side. However, I have most of my measuring tools on the left-hand side because if I'm measuring something, I'm usually wanting to mark it as well. If I'm running a power tool, I've got my impact driver or nail gun, I've got most of my fixings on my left-hand side. So this is the Mule on this side and the Ox on this side. I should also point out that with their tool belts, they all come in left or right-handed configurations. Likewise with the hammer holster, that's absolutely mint, way better than having a loop. Since I bought this, I also made a few additions and modifications, which I'll get into later on. I should probably mention the price at some point too. So I bought this May last year and it was fantastic. At the time, we were still at Prebleton doing some of the roof structure, and it came in really handy having these big pouches full of T screws and bugles and joist hangers and whatnot. These are big enough that you can fit tool batteries as well. Let's talk about the belt itself. When you get sized for a belt, you want to measure it up a bit higher. It's not like a lot of the guys will wear the Taurus and other belts quite low down and they need suspenders because it's sitting on pretty much nothing, because let's face it, most blokes don't have hips. But with the Diamondback and other similar systems, they are designed to sit up higher. And that can be a little bit of an issue because you need to get the sizing right. For me, I'm a little bit in between. I'm between a small and a medium, so I fit both sizes. But I bought a medium and I've lost a little bit of weight. I think I'll put it back over the Christmas break. I've got this adjusted as tight as it will go, and I do find sometimes it slips down, so I will need to get a small at some point. But the beauty of this is it's so comfortable that I don't actually need suspenders. The buckle on this belt is superb, clips in really nicely. I do find sometimes if it's sagged a little bit, to get it off, to unclip it, I need to just take the weight off the belt first. A lot of people have complained that it's really hard to adjust. So when I first got it, there was another one of these metal O-loops here. I took that off just so it's a lot easier for me to slide through. Oh yeah, I mentioned about the pouches not sliding around. These are all velcroed in place, so there's velcro on the main belt itself that stops these from sliding around. Now if you want to adjust them, you just undo these, undo the velcro, slide them to where you want them and do it up again. And I've been running this for 8 months and these haven't moved, they haven't come off, I haven't had any issues like that. Here I've got 2 sizes of punches. There is normally when you buy a nail set an intermediate size. I don't tend to use that one. I've got my 600mm good roll. They do come in imperial for you people from 13 colonies. I used to run a meter ruler, but I actually changed, I think before I got this tool belt, because a meter ruler is 250mm or 10 inches folded up roughly. Just sticks out a bit too much, and especially with that tool belt out in the side there, it will get caught on things quite a bit. Got the speed square slot here. Speed squares didn't really start becoming popular until a few years ago. In my old company, one of my foremen absolutely hates them. They think they're a bit of a cheap method. Got to move with the times. Tape measure holster. It's a bit of a contentious issue. A lot of people have complained on the Artisan or the original Denali, I'm not sure, that they were too small. I did originally have a Milwaukee tape, but it was just too big for this pouch because I've got a whole bunch of rubber overmolding over it, which stops it going in there even when I took the hook off. This one fits fine. Sometimes it gets a little bit stuck when I'm trying to get it in there, but it's still a one-handed operation. And they do stretch a little bit over time as well. Now, here's a tool which I don't normally carry. I will if I'm doing a steel portal or something like that, and that's the little torpedo level from Stabilit. Some torpedoes won't fit in there, especially if they've got another vial there. But this one fits quite nicely in that slot there. In this pouch here I tend to run my big fixings, like my bugles or my tech screws. And in here I'll run brads or something. This one, they advertise that as for the trim speed square. I can run this one in there. But if I'm using my nail gun with my 90mm, what's that, 3.5 inch nails, they fit nicely in there. When I first got the tool belt, I was running them in this pouch here, but I find they just get a little bit stuck in there. Whereas this, they sit up quite nicely, and I can fit half a dozen racks in there quite comfortably. I have most of my tools on the right hand side. I've got my knife in there, my nips, which in the Taurus, where I had mine, basically a two-hand operation to get it out. Some people will have it out like this, but then it gets caught on things. Whereas in here, I can slip that in with one hand. Also got a chisel. This is my hack chisel. You will void the warranty if you have a sharp chisel in there. Also got my little combination square. It's a little 150, but don't always have it back here. Sometimes I just drop it in here. So this 150 comes in handy for doing windows and things like that, where the speed square doesn't quite fit. Got chalk line. James is constantly borrowing my chalk line. Also got right angle bit for my impact driver and a, what is this, a 150 6-inch extension for the impact driver as well. Couple of pencils. Got some impact driver bits here. This is a little bit tight getting in there sometimes. I do tend to carry a few different bits just loosely in there. I do need to come up with a better system for that though. Right, so additions. This is the cell phone pouch. To be honest, it's probably a bit overpriced. You could buy a cheaper one from another brand and it will probably do the same thing. The benefit of this one though, it's got this little hook here, so you can basically put it wherever you like. If you want to have it on here or in here, you can do that. When I first got the tool belt, I actually just had my phone in there. Right, the second addition I made was this gun loop here. Absolute game changer. I hook impact drivers, nail guns on there, things like that. There is a loop here to do that as well. Sometimes I will do that, but for larger tools like a nail gun, it will bang into the back of my leg if I have that. Third edition, with the Denali 2 system, this comes standard, and that is the flat bar holster. In my case, the doggy bar holster. You can fit 3 in there. I tend to just have the ones. Occasionally I'll get my big flat bar out and I'll have that in there as well. That kind of sticks out and is a little bit awkward. When I first got the tool belt, I had it there. If I was doing trim and I was walking around a painted house, sometimes this would just fling out and I'd be worried about it scraping things. And if I was doing skirtings or kickboards, I think you call them in the States, if I was bending down, this would be scraping on the floor, or sometimes even on scaffolding. That tip a few times got caught. So I ended up getting this, and it sits in there real nicely, and I haven't had a problem since. With both the hammer and the nail bar holster, these are adjustable. So for the hammer holster you got 2 little bolts. These aren't the ones that came with it originally. I lost them. So if you look at the instructions, it says put thread lock on them. I didn't. So I managed to lose both of them. So I put some new ones on, put some thread lock on, and they're fine now. There's also a strap underneath to adjust the height. Once you get that dialed in, it's absolutely superb. If you have it a little bit too shallow, sometimes your hammer can fall out, and if you have it too steep, it's just a weird, awkward angle. It will depend on you though. Likewise with this, although there's only 1 bolt there, and there's that adjustment strap, it's a little bit easier. See there? Weight wise, this weighs in empty, and that's with the extra additions as well, at about 2 kilos. So what's that, 4.5 pounds? The Taurus, which is a lot smaller, with the suspenders, it also weighs in at the same weight. But this has a lot more pouches, so I carry a lot more tools. For example, I wouldn't be carrying these, wouldn't be carrying that. A lot less fixings as well. So this does weigh in heavier. And when people ask me about the tool belt, I take it off and hand it to them, they're like, oh, it's so heavy. Honestly, this belt is so comfortable, you don't feel that way. Whereas that, loaded up with fixings, felt horrible, and I felt it's quite pinchy around the waist. Because that there is only a 50mm belt, whereas this is a 6-inch or 150mm. And you can see just how wide that is at the back. In terms of size, yes, it looks big. Size hasn't been as much of an issue as you might think. So if I'm working around a house that's been painted, I haven't hit any walls with this. I'm just aware of the size and probably a little bit more careful. The only time I really had problems was when I was at Darfield doing the trusses there, and especially when the trusses were up, trying to walk around the scaffolding because the tails were sticking out so much, and especially when the fascia went up, there was even less space. The good thing is it was a simple house, so we weren't actually working up there for very long. Let's talk about the price. To put it in perspective, when I bought the Taurus, I thought that was an expensive tool belt. I had been working around the trades. I'd been in a frame and truss factory where we were provided with all the equipment, and they were lower end than the Super Yankee. So I thought when I went shopping, $300 for a Super Yankee tool belt was pretty expensive. It wasn't. This, just the basic tool belt, cost $989. Cell phone pouch was $145. The gun loop at the back was $75, and flat bar holster was $90. So all up I'm looking at, including shipping, about $1,300. And that horrifies a lot of people. But then I explain to people that I wear this for 40 plus hours a week, so it's my most used tool. I know it's not technically a tool. When you put it in perspective, if you look at a circular saw or something like that, you're looking at $500 plus sometimes, plus batteries. Whereas this, I'm wearing and using basically all the time I'm working, so when you put that in perspective, it's not that bad. So my verdict as a carpenter who wears this for 40 plus hours a week, is it worth spending $1,300 on a Diamondback tool belt? Absolutely. This is worth every cent, but go and try one out first if you're not sure, and look at the payment options, because yes, it's expensive, but if you can pay that off over 6 weeks or whatever it is, it's going to make it a lot easier. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll get back to my holiday. Might get some kayaking in. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Cheers!